Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Heart of the Bride live here on a Monday night. I am Brian Chrisman. I'm the Executive Director of Heart of the Bride Ministries, and this Monday night live broadcast is something we endeavor to do about once a quarter just to do more than give information, right? We have a podcast that we use for that called Plead the Cause, which I will reference in a little bit because it's going to be important to this discussion. But this is a live event, and more than just information, we invite our supporters from around the world to join us and engage through the comment section to ask questions. It's we have so many that join us at times. It would be hard to bring everybody in live. I wish we could do that. Some of the smaller groups we do that with, but something like tonight where we want people to be able to ask questions, we're going to do that through the comment section. So whether you are joining us on YouTube or Facebook, or if you clicked that direct link you got via email to join us in the StreamYard stream, you can ask a question in that comment section. And so why don't we go ahead and fire that comment section up and do this for us. Comment with your name, which will probably be in your comment anyway, and where you're viewing from, just so we can know that you guys, we see the count up there, and depending on which platform you use, that count is specific to YouTube or StreamYard or Facebook. So you don't all get the full effect, but just comment on, who you are, where you're watching from, so that, we'll know you're with us. And then what we're going to do tonight is have some discussion with those that are joining invited guests. And then we're going to open it up for a time of question and answer. If you have an important question while we're sharing, we invite you to post it. But I am producing this as well tonight, so I may not notice it till it's time for the question and answer session. So anyway, that's kind of what we're doing. What we're doing tonight is specific to Zambia. It is our guest, in fact, got up very early in the morning there. It's 7 p.m. here Central Time. Some of you are on the different American times, like Cindy Williams from Missouri. She's with us. She's Central. That's good. We got Mark and Nanette from State College, PA. So they're 8 p.m. And we got others from Tennessee. But our Zambian friends are at 2 a.m. Okay, as they say, 02, right? They're at 2 a.m. So they got up very early in the morning. Some are debating about going to sleep after this. Others may stay up and be really productive in the wee hours of the morning. But we're so glad you're all with us. Look at that. We got Jim and Dell and Mama Walker from Georgia. Well, Alexander City, Alabama is where they are right now. So glad you guys are with us. Several from Alabama, even Atala, that's the Walkers are making friends up there where we used to be when we served at Meadowbrook Baptist in Gadsden. So awesome to see Atala up there. We got parents, proud missionary parents from Hendersonville, Tennessee, and Panama City Beach, Florida. Glad you're with us, Lynn. Well, let me go ahead and bring our guest in tonight while you guys are posting and letting us know where you're from. We're going to go ahead and let me bring in Bob and Candace Walker. Speaking of Gadsden fame, actually, you guys live in Southside, though, right? You got the 5 big cities there: Gadsden, Southside, Atala, Glencoe, Alabama City. What else is around there? Yeah, it's like the 5 boroughs of New York, but right there in Northeast Alabama. So, how are you guys doing this? Well, it's this morning for you. How you guys doing?
We're doing good. Little groggy, but we're here.
Yeah. Good to be here. We really appreciate you doing this. My goodness. It's early for you, and we just chatted a little while ago. It's the same day for me, but you guys have slept since then. So I know that blows your mind. So, I'm so glad you're with us. Also joining us tonight are Chris and Amy Zimba. How are you guys doing?
We're doing okay. Yeah. We'll see how this affects the rest of our day, but we're doing good right now.
I know. Oh my goodness. Well, glad you're with us, Amy. Your parents are on. They've already posted that they're there. You guys all have family. I got family. Sonia is joining us, my wife, just from the other room. So we've got people all over that are posting and that are with us from Indiana to Pennsylvania to Tennessee. So glad you guys are all with us tonight. Well, tonight we are going to be talking about what God is doing in Zambia and leading in Abbas Heart Zambia in a new direction. Still working with the same kids, but in a new way, in an expanded way. So if you're joining us tonight, if this is like new news to you, then I want to invite you to go to our website, click top stories from last year. It's still right on our homepage at heartofthebride.org. From there, you can then click. The story was like a big vision. I should have looked it up. It's something like a big vision, a big goal. Anyway, it's going to kind of describe what God is doing in Zambia and what we feel He's doing. You can also go find our podcast. It is Plead the Cause. It's on all of your major platforms, Apple, Spotify, also on YouTube. Find Plead the Cause. And our last 2 episodes were directly about this. In fact, it featured the Walkers and then the Zimbas. And so we want to invite you to listen to that. So tonight, we're not going to cover all of those things, the history that led to this decision and all that. Tonight, we're just going to kind of launch into, hey, here's what is going to change. Here's what it's going to look like. Then let you guys kind of start asking questions. But before we do that, I thought it was kind of important to share at least kind of a little, I don't know if you want to call it update or some whatever, but something to celebrate that you guys just posted about the other day. You know, we've been following a couple of our kids through the Upward Scholarship Program now in their transition phase to adulthood. Martha and Stanley. But you guys went to lunch the other day, and tell us what happened when you were at lunch.
Wow.
Well, we were meeting with Enoch, trying to touch base with all the team here since we had been out and get caught up. And so we decided to meet at Garden Court, which is, we wanted to treat Enoch to a nice lunch. And it's a part of a hotel in the community. This is the nicest hotel in our town. And Enoch was like, well, this is about the time where Stanley and Martha are knocking off from their attachment. So we were like, oh, are they here? We want to see them. We hadn't seen them yet. And so we wanted to greet them. And so they came over as they were leaving, and we're just really excited. And they told us, hey, we just got our results today from our culinary school. We've passed. And so now they're in a new phase where they're going to be looking for jobs. And so even next week, Martha has an appointment with Helena Morris to go job hunting and to different restaurants and to get her CV or her resume handed out to people. And then as we were sitting there, I saw this little chef way in the background. You can see in that photo way back, there's a kitchen, and somebody was waving, and I was like, who is that? And it was Eustace, who was another former resident of ours. And he just always has a sweet smile. He's there as a sous chef. So he had already been through culinary school, and he had been at Garden Court for a couple years now. So we were excited to see him. Yeah. So it was a good day.
That is a good day. That is a very good day. You were so proud of them. And Ashley has just joined us from here in Crestview online, and she is Martha's prayer partner. So I was just sharing with Ashley last night that update because we're in the same small group together. And so, there are the 2 newest chefs in Zambia, Martha and Stanley from Abbas Heart Zambia. So we're really, really excited about that. Yeah, that's a good day right there. Wow. And so I just thought it was important to share that, and let's celebrate, because then as we launch into what God is doing here, we want to share about this tonight. And let me preface this by saying this to everybody listening. We may not have, in fact, we don't have all the answers tonight. We know that there's still things that are developing as God is leading in our plan. And at the same time, some of the questions you may have, we may say, look, here's what we believe God is doing and what it's going to look like. But we are still praying this through. This is this is new for us. And so it's not new though in the world. In fact, God, if you listen to Plead the Cause, you'll find out there is a ministry that all of our Zambian staff, most of our Zambian staff got to visit, who's been doing this. And it is family reunification or reintegration. Those terms are kind of interchangeable in the world. But instead of long-term residential care, it is to just put this, the 30,000 foot view, it is more of a plan to engage not only the kid, but their family at the same time. The statistics show us that most of the kids we engage, if not all, have some family somewhere, right? And to engage their family at the same time to work with both the family and the kids so that we begin immediately to work on reunifying them with their family. Is that a good short way to put it, guys?
Yeah, I think if I had to give a thumbnail, I would say it's a definite strategy shift, but the ministry shift. For those of you that have trouble accepting change the way I do, the ministry part of it's intact. It's just expanded to the point where we'll actually have access to their families. The strategy shift is we're going to really be encouraging them to go home instead of stay with us for years and years. So
yeah, I think it's important to highlight that early on, Bob, that this is not less ministry. It's not. It's expanded because, and what I wanted to say, or what I want us to say later when we start talking about sponsorship, is that when we engage a child through outreach and feel like, hey, God is leading us to bring them in, it is immediate engagement with that child and their family at the same time, which is a new part to the ministry. You guys have, and if you listen to Plead the Cause, again, I'm going to reference that a lot tonight because we can't answer every question in this time, but we've highlighted in that you guys have always sought their families, especially when they're new on the street. You find their family situation and you engage with them, because if you can get them back quickly, that's always best, right? But now it's going to be with a really intentional strategy towards that family to see them transformed by the gospel, disciple them, educate them, and equip them as we're doing that with the child to then bring this family back together as soon as possible. So it's more ministry, not less.
and continue on with them as well. It's not just here we're going to drop this child off, they're reunified, story over. We recognize the problems that brought them to town are still going to be there, and so we have to continue to walk with the child and the family on a regular basis until the child is old enough to enter their own journey. So yeah, absolutely.
And right. So we're still going to walk with them. Oh, go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
I'm trying to drag Chris and Amy into this. They're with the outreach aspect. And, Chris has seen the heartbreaking part of when mothers actually go into town to try to get their kids to come home. And I see us as just really being able to come alongside those families that really want their kids back. And now they'll finally have an advocate that can help them do that.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about that. So outreach programs are not going away. They're going to change some. So Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit about what outreach will look like as we, work through this transition, finally get to the other side, and how outreach will make connections to the kids and families that we'll minister with.
So yes, outreach is going to change, and we're already starting to change. So what we're doing right now is we are scaling back on some of the programs that we've done over the years. Yeah, like we would meet the kids at our drop-in center like every day of the week except Wednesday, when we'll have our big, My Own Papa program, which is a draw. So we're kind of scaling back on some of those, programs. And again, I love, the way it's been put by Bob and Mama Walker already. It's not like we are, reducing the work in any way. We are just venturing into another, avenue of being able to engage, with family. Yeah, so outreach is still going to be very much active, and the programs are going to run. the way they always have, but we're just scaling back just so that we can, focus more, into pouring into the families, like it's been mentioned already. I think we've always engaged with the kids. We bring them into, residential. They're with us for, for an extended time, but the strategy is going to be, a little bit different because we engage, with family already. And that's something we've already seen because God has been working and God has been moving.
Mm.
Yeah, like, there are kids who've expressed desire and interest to, to go back home. And we're just stepping into that place where we, listen to God and, to the leading and direction, that He's given us. Yeah, so that's what outreach is going to look like in a nutshell. So we will have our drop-in center maybe, a few times, in a week, just as a point of, contact and connection, because we have kids that have been in town, for a long time. And that's a place that they come to, whenever they have problems. So we are keeping, some of those places of connection so that they can have a place to come to. Yeah, so we are keeping our drop-in center. Then we're also continuing to do, programs like My Own Papa, because it's a big draw. And that's where we get to, meet the ones that are coming to town for the first time, because they're always invited, by their friends. Let's go take baths, let's go wash up, let's go have a meal. Yeah, so we obviously can't do away, with all of those programs because they are strategically in place so that we are able to, to meet those kids. Yeah, but the big change.
Once a month instead of, several times.
Yes.
So what we're saying is, when you say scale back, we're going to decrease the frequency of some of those programs. All right. But now that doesn't mean there's going to be less work for the, Zai woke up. Amy just brought the cuteness. Right. Oh my goodness. Wow. There you go. Now we're all distracted. It's over.
Yeah. Especially Grandma and Grandpa, I'm sure.
Yeah, oh, of course. Oh, my goodness. No, we're going to decrease the frequency of programs, but not the scale and workload for our outreach staff. Tell us about what the outreach staff will begin to do as outreach programs scale back.
Yeah, so, outreach is going to be very, very busy. As you can imagine, this is an arena that is very complex. Yeah, like even just the other day we had to do a home visit because we're already thinking, in those lines, when a kid comes to town, take them back home, as quickly as they can, have conversation with the parents. And the situations we met on the ground were so complex. Yeah, so outreach is going to be spending a lot of times, with family. And as you can imagine, we've only dealt so much in the past with the trauma and everything that the kids go through. But to find the source of why they're in town and, meet all those challenges, has been, something that we've had to readjust our minds to. Yeah, so just the other day, we were in the field, at our home, looking at all these complex issues that we're going to have to deal with because for us, we're taking it, as a gospel opportunity to the kids as well as the family, and we're engaging the family, from the get-go. So outreach is going to be doing a lot of, home visits, like visiting these families, sharing the gospel, to some extent, even teaching, parents, how to parent their kids and, shepherd them, and lead them to the Lord. So, it's going to be, a very, very busy time, for all of us on the outreach team because, this is huge and, this is big, and we believe this is where, God is leading us to be able to engage, with these families.
So to piggyback off of that, so kind of what it will look like is that, once we have kids, especially in the residential side, maybe we'll have one outreach worker who will be assigned a family, and that will be their caseload. We'll be visiting that family on a weekly basis, doing follow-ups, seeing what needs to be prepared for that child to be reintegrated, what still needs to be set in place, what needs to be worked on. And so they're going to be, doing a lot of family counseling, just working a lot with the parents, and which is a totally new arena for a lot of them. And, we've had those conversations where we have some young staff that are going to be counseling older, people. So there's a lot of new dynamics that we're going to have to be training our staff in, even staff who've been with us for years. It's all this new way to look at things and way to work at things that we've never done before. So it'll be a fun new challenge, that's for sure. So
I'm glad you
expanding the way that we can share the gospel and hopefully build the kingdom ultimately.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. So that, our outreach staff will become also, and they already do a lot of social work, but the social workers in contact with the families on the family side, who will then be doing the work of trauma-informed care, but from the source side, and potentially, right? That's not always the case, but it is a lot of times. But doing the discipleship, education, and training of the family, or whatever family this child is, our goal is to reunify them with. Not always parents, sometimes aunts, uncles, grandparents, but so their workload, again, when you say scaling back outreach, their workload is not reducing, it's increasing. And we had a question right now. The Sathers are asking, how large is the outreach staff? Well, I think we could say not large enough, right?
Yeah.
Like it's got to grow. Yeah. All right. The point of this, go ahead, Bob.
I just was talking with Enoch and Tommy and Chris, and the first bit of hiring that we're going to do, where we're actually looking at 4 interviews right now, but it's specifically for Christian counselors that'll be associated with outreach. So we're going to
need a lot of different specialties now, right? I mean, because, no one person can do it all. So we're going to need more Christian counselors, trauma-informed, social workers, that sort of thing. So it's going to involve a lot. So they also asked the question, and then they said, yes, it never is. That is true. That is true, Janet and Larry. It's not. And the point of this cast is not to say, hey, we need more money and resources, but we will need more money and resources to do this, because it is a large vision. But we believe, again, go back to our podcast and listen to Plead the Cause, that this is God's heart, is for family. I mean, that's the first institution he created, right after man and woman, and gave them to each other in marriage. And then said, be fruitful and multiply. I mean, family was the first institution, and it is the foundation for society. So we know that this is God's will, and for a lot of different reasons. Well, so is there anything? Oh, go ahead,
Brian. Can I just have Chris answer that question for Janet and Larry?
Yeah.
Hi, by the way, Janet and Larry.
Hey, Druckness.
Chris, can you tell us the size of the staff?
Sure. So there's 7 of us on the outreach team. Yeah, and we're working with probably over 1,000 kids that are still in town. Yeah, so that's something we are already praying for, because we know as the workload increases, we still have those that will still be on the streets, and obviously we can't just neglect them and be like, oh, we're only focusing on the ones that have been reintegrated or reunified with their families. So we are really seeking God and praying that God may increase us in some way, because the workload will be it'll be a lot. It'll be a lot. And in our city that we are in, there's not many people that are working with street children. Like I can count by hand how many ministries you've heard of that are working with these kids. So that's a huge prayer for the team.
So there's 5 men and 2 ladies that work on outreach. So.
Which kind of reflects also the difference in the number of male children in the street versus female. That's one reason why the staff is imbalanced like that. Before we move on, the Janet and Larry said, hello, sweet friends, just so you know. They are listening and interacting. So tell us a little bit about the timeline to intake then, how you see that going. We identify a child, we believe is primed for this new program. What is the timeline for meeting that, identifying them to intake?
Because we're keeping some of the programs that we've already done, I think we have, I feel like over the years we've had a lot of kids who are in the waiting room, like waiting for them to have a shot, to be taken in. So just looking at the direction that we are going in and, switching things up. So I would say the timeline is probably, for now, we already have people, or boys, and girls who we already have in mind, but we're talking maybe, acting as soon as we can. So I think it will depend on, when a kid shows up. Obviously, if they're new to the streets, we don't want them to be, in town for a really long time, and end up like some of the ones, that we are working with that, become very difficult, to convince, to leave the streets. So our goal is always going to be, once we identify, a new kid, and that's what we've been doing lately, immediately we act, we go to the home, assess the home situation, if they can be taken back, we do that. If it's something, that requires, more time because, the family has issues, then we bring them in immediately. Yeah, so that's the strategy that we are leaning towards, even as we go forward.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the hard thing is going to be, especially in this first season, of it's all going to be dependent on space. Right now there's so many. We're talking to the walkers about this. It's going to become a hard decision of like, do we focus on the ones who have been there longer, who we would love to finally see out of the streets, and maybe who have been consistent to programs, or do we focus on the ones that are brand new so that they don't end up like the older ones? It's just going to be this constant conversation, and why, as we've always done in outreach, when we get ready for intake, it's always going to be dependent on prayer, and we're going to be spending time in prayer, talking as a team, discussing who is the one that God is pinpointing for this season and this intake right now. So I don't know if the walkers have anything to add to that. So
no, the only thing I'll add to it, because it's still so shocking to me, is that there are actually some kids that don't want to come off the streets, and you would think that they would just be flocking to our doors, but for the most part that is true. But there are a strong percentage of kids who are addicted to that lifestyle, and they're just not ready. We've even had a few instances in the past where we've invited kids and they don't show up the next day to where we're supposed to pick them up because they're not ready. They don't want to leave the streets. And it's hard to believe, but it happens.
Well, and while you're talking, do you want to kind of talk about Amy reference, some of this is going to depend on, of course, space and room. Do you want to talk about the transition, now we have the long-term residence kids that we've set up that way, but how we're going to transition to begin to take in kids for the shorter term program?
Yeah, we, our first kind of goal in this new setup is we already have, a couple houses full of kids in residency. And so the first step was to talk to them about God's desire for them to be reunified with their families. And so we're in a process of working with their families and getting them prepared for our current residents who have been with us in care, and to walk with them through that process. And some of them, there's a little, anxiety about that, going home after, what they've experienced in such a stable environment at Abbas. But I think for the most part, they're positive in their thinking, and they are grateful that we want to share the gospel story and the life-changing message of Jesus Christ with their family, and that we're not just going to drop them off and walk away, that we're going to continue in relationship to help them. And so that will be our first thing to do. And then we'll be able to kind of do some remodeling of the homes that we have to be able to create more space for kids to come in for that, anywhere between, I would say, generally as 1 month to could be potentially 1 year, depending on what their trauma is, what their issues are at home, to get them through the program that our team has been developing to prepare them to go home. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
And I'll throw in another little caveat, sorry, is that all of our residents are required to go home, is it twice a year? 3 times a year already. So it's not like they haven't seen home for years and years. They've at least met with family members, even if it's not direct parents, it's extended family. And so they do go home several times a year, and they at least touch base with family members.
Yeah. And so the important part about that too, I think, is so we're not going to mix the two programs in one house, right? Like because you can't have kids that have been geared already to be here longer with kids, all of a sudden this boy's only going to be here for 1 to 6 months, right? So once we can begin to reintegrate some of the kids we already have, we'll get them into one house. When we have an open house, then we will begin the shorter term program in that separate house. Am I correct on that?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And the ideal, shorter program would be 3 to 6 months. There would only be certain exceptions for extended, but yeah, the goal is 3 to 6 months.
Right. And that will depend on the level of trauma in the child and the home situation, how much work, because we're not going to rush this. We're not sending them home to meet a timeline if it's not ready. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, it's always been very individualistic. Each kid is considered on their individual basis and statistics and life, whatever they've been through. So that's not going to change. We will get a kid home as soon as they're ready to go, or as soon as the family's ready, based on an individual basis. So.
Absolutely. Well, and we won't get into all the behind the scenes with that, because there's a whole lot that goes into all of that evaluation you want to get into the weeds. That's the weeds, right? So those of you watching this, we're going to spare you that, but let's just say this is not a loosey-goosey program and people getting together and going, well, I think he's ready to go home. Yeah, I think there is evaluation. Yeah, Amy is reacting. Yeah, there is evaluation. It is organized. We are grateful to a ministry that is kind of mentoring us in that. The Walkers and I will be at an event in April that is geared towards this, with other ministries who are ahead of us in this and have experience in teaching us. Agape Children's Services in Kenya has done this for a long time, and they are sharing a lot of resources with us and experience so that we don't go into it blind. But that all that evaluation process, it is logged and careful, and it's a group. It's I don't want to say a conglomerate. That's not the word I'm looking for. But anyway, but of staff who come together to discuss that child and the family and where they are, to really identify prayerfully, like when that time is right and they're ready to come back together. But again, we're not going to go into all those weeds for you at home. But do any of you want to comment on that?
I was just going to say, our team is ready for lots and lots of more meetings. Just more meetings. Discussing each child, each family.
Death by meetings. Shorter meetings. More meetings, but shorter meetings. That's the motto, right? That's the motto. Okay. Oh my goodness. Well, so that's good. So we've covered a couple of things. The goal for residential timeline. Do you want to comment a little bit on what that'll look like for the kids on campus, and then we can talk about what that looks like for the families. What does it look like for a kid for the time that they are on campus?
You mean what they'll be doing, or just the length of?
No, what will they be doing? Just a brief. Hey, here's what's going to be going on with them.
Well, they're going to be, first of all, they're going to be assessed. So we'll have a team, and the team's going to be divided into different departments. So we'll have their spiritual formation, we'll have education, we'll have counseling. And so they will have these assessments, and then that will determine how they will kind of go through the program. And then as they are going through those different classes, they have kind of a graduation point after they get kind of the foundation, and they go into kind of a regular routine of school and counseling sessions and activities, discipleship training and that sort of thing, as they are waiting to be prepared to go home, and as their family is being prepared as well. And I think maybe Chris and Amy would be more knowledgeable about what we would be doing on the family side. I don't even know if we're fully prepared mentally and for that. But as Chris said, it's very complex with families because they come with so many different issues they're struggling with. And it's always a mixed bag. It's not cookie cutter families, right? So there's always different issues.
And the Zimbas got to go to Kenya, so I don't know. Maybe you guys can add something on, even for the kids that are on campus.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say for the families, like, we are still coming up with, a strategy. Obviously, we'll be working, with both sides, simultaneously. So for the families, it's assessing, the home, where these children come from, seeing what kind of trauma they've gone through. Because we also, acknowledge that, even the parents themselves might have gone through a trauma, of some sort. And that's why it's so hard for them, to, take care of their kids. Yeah, so we are looking at, family, holistically. Like there'll be so many things that we are going to be looking at. We'll assess the environment, assess how they're doing spiritually, financially, and all of those areas, are going to be looked at, because at the end of it all, when it's time, for reunification and for these children to be put back in the home, we want to make sure, we've done our part, and faithfully done our part, and, leave the results to God. So I would say there's a lot, that, needs to be done, with the families. We'll be doing, discipleship with the family, just trying to make sure, they understand, the gospel, because especially for like our current residents, we know they're at a certain place, where they've experienced, God in some sense through the teachings that they've had here, with us, and through the teachings that they've had, through Abbas. And we know the parents are just not in the same place. So it's going to be a lot of, discipling, families, before the kids are even actually introduced back into those situations. And there'll be times where, a child and a family, will have to, be in a meeting, sat down, go through, the gospel together, so that it's not just very one-sided. So there will be a lot of sharing of notes between, the outreach team and the residential team. Like we'll constantly be sharing notes so that home is ready, and the parents are ready. And whenever we feel like, both have enough, to be able to succeed, then the reunification is going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, and I would
Right.
even add the element of, obviously the local church is going to be a big help to us, that we're praying for that. And that's something that people can be really praying for, is that the local community churches around these families will be willing and open to assist us in bringing them into their community. Obviously, we know true discipleship is of a believer in Christ, but as we're teaching the principles of Christ in a discipleship format, and constantly sharing the gospel, we really need the churches to partner with us in this with these families.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I was just about to highlight that. I'm glad you mentioned that. We need to be praying for that, right? For there to be healthy churches around these families to plug into. And we'll do what we can to encourage that and help equip them, but we can't do it all. So we need churches to just, to step up, and we're praying for good, healthy churches to plug these families into. So that's a good prayer request. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so I know one of the questions people have, by the way, welcome Stephanie. Stephanie jumped on late, but Stephanie's with us. Hey, Stephanie Barron.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hey, Steph.
she's with us.
We're in her house here.
Yeah, let's
Her
so
old
recognized.
house.
There you go, Stephanie, your old apartment, their new one. So that's right. Oh my goodness. It's a little different now though, with an extra bedroom and a door into the main house.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and maybe we're not even fully ready to answer this question yet, but one of the questions that keeps coming up is what will happen to children if you determined they cannot be reintegrated with their family?
Yeah, I think, that is a question that we haven't answered as far as the how,
Mhm.
but we have answered as far as we will make sure that they're cared for. We don't know exactly if we're going to be led to some type of fostering, branch of our ministry with people, if we can find people in the community that we're in with the church families that are willing to do some foster care. We don't know if it will evolve into a small home with some Zambian house parents that we're helping to sponsor to take care of the kids. But we do know that we are not going to leave a child who their home is just not fit, their family is not responding, is not open. We're not going to send them back to town.
Right.
So that is kind of half answered, unanswered. We're in the process of seeking the Lord. He always has the answer. He just doesn't tell us right away. So
Right.
yeah, kind of where we're at.
So I'll add this too, Brian, is that the other side of that coin is, yes, we're not going to abandon any child, and we're going to make sure that that we do our absolute best to care for them and to give them a future and a hope. The other side of that coin is that as we get better at this, we're going to find fewer and fewer ways to take no for an answer. These parents are gonna have to step up. These are their kids. And I know they're comfortable with the fact that they're being cared for. But as we really get into this and get to know the families better, there are, I guess somebody used this phrase that if you have plan B, you're probably going to use it. So we're going to try less and less to have a plan B for these kids and just have to have a real determined focus to get these kids home, not at their peril, as Candace was saying. But we're gonna have to be pretty tough with not taking no for an answer.
No, well, and I think that the important part to that is before we start calling you Bob the Enforcer, is that but to back that up, that's been proven around the world multiple times, right? If there is a plan B that seems more attractive, plan B becomes plan A. So when children are brought into residence, what you guys are going to begin to share with them is something like, we love you. We are here to, we're going to disciple you, train you. We're going to work with your family. We want to take care of you, but you're not going to stay here, right? This is, it begin to change the way they look at the program. This is a transition to you returning to family, right? That will be the primary focus. Now, we know we're not going to send kids back into a dangerous situation, but that will be the primary focus, and it will be communicated that way, because that, again, even other ministries have found that even their staff, if they know there's a plan B, they start to default to it, right? If there's any hint, any question, any doubt. So we've got to change our mindset completely on that. But even though we don't have the answer, the simple answer to the question is, we will not send a kid back into a dangerous situation. So just know that. So
the other positive part is that as we begin working with these families, they will have better options for those kids.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Be able to walk with them and getting their kid back in school, and we'll be able to walk with them and getting their child into a trades or their young person into a trades program, whatever it takes. But instead of launching it from here, we're going to launch it from their house.
Absolutely. Right. No, that's I'm glad you made that transition, because I was about to say, so this is where then the question of sponsorship starts to come together. People are asking about sponsorship. What will that look like? How will that be? It's going to be different, but in transition, yes, families will be healthier and have more to offer. And part of this is faith. We know God's leading us this way. So some of this is faith that families will respond to this. But as they do, and as we can equip them, right, when kids return to their home, we are never going to give money. I shouldn't say never. We will not give money to families directly. All right. So that's answer number one, unless it is a very specific, well-vetted and controlled situation, right, through our social work outreach staff. But we're not just going to be handing cash to families. Sponsorship will, when a child returns to a family, will pay for them to go to school, to continue to provide the counseling that they need to make sure that they're well fed and taken care of in their family. But again, not giving the money to the parents, right? And just to put it bluntly, I mean, we're real open here. When we were talking about it as a staff early on, one of our guys who sponsors kids, not only at Heart of the Bride, all over the world, he said, I would want to make sure I know that my money is not funding Uncle whoever's alcoholism. I mean, that will never happen, right? That is not it.
Brian, in the instance of school or education, the money goes directly to the school.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the money will be helping us to make sure that family, that child, is still getting connection with our social workers and our counselors, and making sure that we have a beat and are able to minister to them in a continual way. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we already. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say that's another side of what outreach will get to do, is that it's not like when a child is reintegrated that their weekly visits to the family is going to stop. It's going to now be weekly visits to the family and the child, making sure, follow up, how are they settling in? Are they, struggling? Are they thinking about going back to town? Are they thinking about this and this? And so constantly follow up and all that sort of stuff. And that's another thing while the kid is on campus that the outreach team will be helping with, is identifying the school that the child should be going to, and making connections with the school to put those things into as much, involving the family as much as possible, because we want them to take ownership in it, and responsibility, but stepping in and helping guide where needed.
Absolutely. So, well, in just a minute, we're going to shift to the question time. So if you have questions, if you're watching this, please start typing those into the comment section so we can see those, and we want to answer those. So what the question then people have is, what will sponsorship look like? And we don't have a full answer to that, but I think as we have discussed this last week and then even today, we want to work as hard as we can to preserve the relational aspect of sponsorship. Heart of the Bride has always been about that. But we also know that it's going to have to change some, because now these children will be returning to families, and that presents some different challenges, right? For families that would then want to reach out and get to know. Now, I think everybody who is a sponsor already knows this. To a child in another country through Heart of the Bride, you're not known as a sponsor. You are known as a prayer partner, because we are not. We're trying our best not to promote hey, this person is your savior, right? We're trying to direct them to the real savior, but they know you. Right.
Yeah. Your ATM. Yeah.
Right. So thank you. Yeah, I was trying to be delicate, but that's exactly right. No, we're right. We want, so we call you, if you're a sponsor, prayer partner to the children in the area. They figure it out pretty quickly that you're a sponsor, but so that presents different challenges. So we are praying about what this will look like when the shorter term program begins, and may have to introduce a new level of anonymity between sponsor and child, especially sponsor and family. We don't know exactly what that will look like. We want to facilitate the communication. We want to make sure you get updates from the children that you'll be sponsoring, but there may have to be a new level of anonymity in respect from between the sponsor and the child and family. But what I think is really cool about it is that sponsorship will shift from I'm going to be seeing this kid through to they're 18 and possibly, trade school or college if they go, and I feel led to do that too. When you sponsor a child at Abbas Heart Zambia, you are now investing in a family, to restore a family, to provide gospel change, discipleship to a family, not just one child, right? And we've always endeavored to reach the families, but now it's going to be very specific and intentional. So sponsorship really is not going to reduce in any way. It will increase its reach. And so when someone sponsors a child, and even those of you who are sponsoring children at the Vineyard or at Daughters of Destiny now, we're beginning to reach out to their families more intentionally. Your investment will now be in that family, not just the child. So the impact of what you're giving and doing is about to grow exponentially.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you guys have anything to add to that before we try to get people to start asking some questions here? No one's got any questions yet, so you must be doing a really good job.
Being very thorough.
Yeah, very thorough. Or they're just all catching up like us, right? We even have our own questions. But anything you guys want to add to that?
I think obviously when you're a sponsor, you have different types of people who sponsor. You have some people who, just are committed to send in their offering and know that the child is in good hands and caring. And then you have others who desire more relationship and connection. I would just say that even though it may be a little less connection as we're used to now, just to actually protect the sponsor and the mindset of the family is the goal, from some interaction that might not be healthy, that you will be able to still have regular updates on the situation, because we're going to be so involved with the children and their family when they're reunified, that we're going to have somebody who is engaged specifically for the sponsors, to have all these updated information. And so you might even have more information than you have in the past, because we're going to have to be so intentional about these updates and assessments with the child and family. So your information about the child and how things are progressing is going to be still pretty extensive.
Absolutely. All right. Well, anybody out there listening and watching this, if you got any questions, post them now. I won't say or forever hold your peace, because we're always here to answer your questions. But if you've got them now, please post them. All right. So here we go. Are the additional outreach workers, will they be coming from within Zambia or the United States? Good question.
Good question.
I can speak to that, or I guess, Chris, why don't you start?
That.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, Zambia probably. Yeah, I think will be the best because of the situations. Yeah, on the ground. Yeah, like once you get other people involved.
Dynamic that, and I know Chris, that kind of puts you in an awkward position to verbalize it.
Well,
He can say
well, listen.
I have been on outreach before, but I cannot do what outreach is venturing into now. Yeah. I cannot and communicating properly. It's just, it doesn't really make sense.
Well, all right, and listen, you've already hinted at the fact that there are cultural challenges even to this when a younger staff member, because in America it's not this way as much, but the respect for elders and in other cultures is greater. And so even now, the cultural challenge of a younger staff member now training and discipling, mentoring an older Zambian, person is a challenge. So, I mean, just navigating those things culturally would be even more difficult if we're from another culture. Okay. It's not even a race ethnicity thing. The cultural barrier just becomes so difficult. But I think for a lot of reasons, And listen, part of our purpose as a ministry has always been to raise up and equip the church and the believers in each country. And we work in America now, right? So we're equipping the churches in our area to do the work. We're not trying to do it ourselves. Same thing in Zambia, Kenya, India, and Haiti. It's to equip the body of Christ there to do this. So, yeah, so the short answer will definitely be, yeah, Zambia. Now, we may eventually, and I think probably will need other missionaries to go there and help equip and, serve this ministry as it grows. But those on the ground, especially in the compounds and in the homes, will be Zambia. I mean, that's the vision.
Well,
Yeah.
and then just one practical aspect is, if you don't speak the language that the family speaks, what do you have to be
You're gonna need a
Zambian.
Zambian translator anyway. So let's.
That's right. How's your bimba, Bob? Oh, that's a good way. That feels good to ask. How's your bimba, Bob? Bob, or how's your bimba, Bob? There we go. That's good. So here's a question: is the new focus primarily for the boys, or will the DoD girls be included as well?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, the DoD girls will be included as well. Yeah, so they will be
Right.
part of the they will be part of the change. So it'll happen for both girls and boys.
Go ahead, Chris. Share with them what we've already begun with the girls, so you can give them a
Yeah,
little
and we've
idea.
already begun with the girls because they're a much smaller target, I would say. So it's been easy to get that already started with them because there's not as many of them. Yeah, so
Right. We were already at the place with an empty house and room. So, we've had a new intake recently. Now, we don't talk about that till they pass safety zone, but we'll tell you here tonight, there is a new girl. You can be praying for her. We won't give her name and stuff until she's ready. But that's already her goal, right? I mean, we've already begun that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an interesting, I think just the way our mindset is already primed to look at things differently. Like we met the ladies met this girl in the streets, and it was a situation where they tried immediately taking her home to see the family, but she was just very adamant that she doesn't want to go home, isn't ready to go home. But so we were actually in Lusaka getting my passport thing, but until Chris is on the phone, and by the end of the day we were like, let's just offer her a chance to come into the home and for the residential program, and she was happy to do that. So we were like, at least she's not in the streets. And so they've already started doing home assessments with the family, just to see what's going on there and see what's going on with her. And they've already started the counseling programs and the different classes. And so, yeah, it's already hitting the ground running with girls, and we're supposed to do another intake soon. So yeah.
We've got two more girls on the back burner for next week, possible intake. Is that right, Chris?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
Well, be praying. Oh my goodness, everybody. In fact, here, Janet and Larry have always said, hey, they love what's going on and the increased Zambian staff, and they're going to be praying. So we really appreciate that. Oh my goodness. Hey, Dave Stearns, Dave and Shelley are on here with us, and they got a long message. Along with, he says he's got your cup of coffee ready for you over there, and he's drinking it. So he's drinking it in your honor, hoping that it will transition to you. So he was asking, he was late, but no, Dave, we haven't covered this, but will social welfare be involved at all or not? Because, the resident has aged out, I guess. So they're talking about, will Zambian social welfare be engaged is what I'm thinking in that.
Dave has been here, so he knows what questions to ask.
Yes, he does.
no, but that is a really good question, because
let me ask Chris and Amy, because tell us what happens in Kenya when that's necessary.
What happens in Kenya
to bring in social welfare?
Are you talking about Kenya or Zambia?
Kenya.
So social welfare is. Sorry?
Go ahead. Are we clear on the country we're talking about?
The way it was explained to me is that there are times when you have to pull in the local government social welfare people to come and talk to the family.
Well, actually now in Zambia, and Chris can share, we are actually required to take a social welfare worker for a home assessment? You go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, so yeah, for us in Zambia right now, like Mama Walk is already explaining, yeah, social welfare, wants to be very much involved in the process from the time of identifying whoever the new, either boy or girl is. They want to be involved. They want to know. Yeah, so we are constantly either on the phone or in the office whenever there's a child that has shown up. You go there, they give you the admission letter. If you end up taking the girl in, but they also want to know whenever you do go, to find out information about the family. So we are in constant communication. And when the time of reunification or reintegration comes, yeah, there's an actual very long process, that has to be followed, because there needs to be other people that are involved, like the police is involved, like a doctor is involved, so that I have this layout of, what a home visit, and a home reintegration, is supposed to look like. Yeah, so we are constantly working together, and sharing notes. Yeah, and it's very much required. They want to be involved every step of the way.
And it kind of feels like a new era with us in social welfare, because they haven't always been our biggest fans in the past. I mean, I think they know, like, ultimately the way we do things, or, they were happy with us because we were getting some kids off the street, but they were never happy with how long we were keeping kids and that we weren't focusing on family reunification, which is a big thing in the Zambian government right now. And so the fact that we're like, okay, last year when we started doing some intakes with girls, we're like, they gave us some pushback, like, why do these girls need to be in residential care? Why can't you just take them home? And so we shared with them, no, we're shifting. We're going to be taking them for shorter periods of time. This is the program they're going to go through. These are the steps. This is the plan. And they were like very excited, now suddenly really on board. And I think this is the first time we can say, like, they've ever been interested in doing home assessments with our team. And so it feels like we're entering a better phase of working with them and kind of being on, the same page.
And I think, just to add on to that, I think it's a total God thing again, because like in the past, like she's explaining, we've had that kind of relationship where you're like, how's this going to work? So, God brought about a change. There are some people that we used to, work hand in hand with at social welfare. It's like everyone in the office just moved. They were moved somewhere else to another station. There were these new people, that are there now. And I would say we have like really good working relationships with them. We have, the kind of relationship where you can just call them and tell them there's a new kid in town. We need to do something about it. And they'll be like, oh yeah, just come through, we'll write the note and all of that. Then we'll do the investigation, later on. So yeah, it's a total God thing, and God has been moving.
Chris was sharing with us the other day about where they actually had to do this with one of the social workers for the girl that we just brought in, I think. And, they don't really understand what's going on with these families the way our outreach team does. And a lot of times they don't believe us that home is such a mess, and it's just really hard for the kids to stay there. And so when Chris was able to take the social welfare with him on a home visit, what was his response, Chris?
Yeah, so his response was like, we walk away from the home, and he looked at the situation, it was so bad. Yeah, we are driving away, and he's like, oh wow, that's a real situation. Like, something needs to be done about that situation. We're like, that's what we've been saying.
As if these are what all the situations look like. This is every child we take. It's not like we're just picking kids with good, stable families and taking them from their homes. Like, every kid we deal with is in a hard situation like this.
Yeah, and I think that has given us an opportunity to be able to, show them, because like our presence in town, our presence in the home is very much there. So we understand the situation. So to take them to those places, explain, show them everything, I think they begin to, realize. They're like, oh, actually, this is, where the work is, and work is to be done here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, this is a good discussion. Go ahead,
Let
Bob.
me say two things. I think, and great question, Dave. And yes, I'm ready for that cup of coffee. Thank you. Dave was here and I think probably back when he was here, our relationship with social welfare was probably more adversarial. There are some pretty dark days when we just really bumped heads with social welfare. So when Chris said it's a God thing, it's a miracle. I mean, to see where we've come from in that relationship to the point where they're really taking an interest is absolutely a God thing. And I'm so happy to hear that. I mean, that's just really a huge relief. And I'm going to brag on our outreach guys and administrative folks too, Amy. In the social welfare and the police will come to Chris and Amy if they have any questions about any of the boys in town. If one of them gets hurt, they'll call and say, hey, do you know this kid? And, you know, do you know anything about his family? Because we've done the research that they just haven't been able to do.
And let me just say, it's only adversarial because they get a mindset of a specific way they want things done, but they don't really understand issues and dynamics at play. And so when we prioritize the care for the child over just getting them out and moving more kids out of town, there's some confusion and misunderstanding. That's all it is,
Right.
really.
And I was going to say this too. What I was going to say is that I also have always respected how hard you guys work at working with the governmental system, right? I mean, the paperwork, the waits, I mean, a lot of it. And I believe God has honored that as well in giving you favor and in establishing relationship there. I mean, it's definitely a move of God, but I think he's used your diligence in that as well.
Well, and let me say, you know, when we first started talking about this last year, even at the Heart of the Bride banquet, we were in a situation where we were going to actually partner with the government to do this program. And so for those of you who were involved in that, I just wanted to communicate, because some people keep asking me, how's the partnership with the government? I just wanted to update people. That is not going through, but we are still moving in the direction that God is leading. So we're not partnering with them in the way we originally were presented. We are working with them side by side through the social welfare in what we are, you know, doing in our new strategy. So it's a little bit different than the way we first presented it, that they were going to be funding some things for us and helping us. That program has not come through. So we are actually pursuing it ourselves with God's leadership in faith. So just an update.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we did have a question about what happened to the other two girls that were living in the house. So let's answer this shortly as we move into a time of prayer, unless there are any other questions that pop up. You know, I think one thing that we've do what?
Greg has a question. What is the total staff count now?
Oh, goodness. Where did you see? How did you see that? I don't even see that comment.
I think he's on private chat.
Oh, he's on the private chat. Yeah.
Well, it's more than payroll because
our payroll number is 26. So yes,
there we go.
26. But there's a few couples there. So 26 Zambian staff, maybe 28 if you add in the wives of the house couples, and then
and we have a few workers. So probably around 30, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So so that it's always been a great staff, but it's got to grow. All right. So the question about what happened to the other two girls living in the house, I don't know exactly sure which two you're talking about because we've had a couple of pairs. The first two, Martha and Bathsheba, are doing well. In fact, we did an update on Martha at the beginning of this, that she, along with Stanley, had just completed her culinary education and attachment, which we would call an internship in the United States, and is now going to be looking for a job. The two that came in behind them, let me just say this. I think that as we've sought to follow God's will all around the world, not just in Zambia, but as we've made steps towards the way God is leading us, the spiritual attack has been intense. Okay, on our ministries, on personal families. I mean, in our office, in my family. I mean, it's just been intense, and So and that, you know, that we also see that played out in some of the kids that we've brought in. I mean, there's been a huge battle for their souls. And so so we've had a couple both on both in the boys program and the girls program leave over the last year, which is not unheard of. I mean, we've always had that. We've always been honest and open and lamented over those things. We share about them at the end of each year in an article in our newsletter where we share our laments. But this year, I think it's just been in all of our ministries way more intense, the battle for these kids' souls. And I believe that's because we're following God's will in this. And so the short answer to that is Martha and Bathsheba are doing well, but the others it's been quite a battle.
Naomi and Paulo is, I think, who they're referencing. So
Okay.
Naomi and Paulo have left, and we still keep in touch with Naomi. She's living locally in our community. And so Mama TK has tried to maintain relationship with her and keep in touch. So, at least that's good. She's not back in the streets. And she, the great thing is, we know that the Lord's word does not return void, and that, these girls have heard the gospel. And especially Naomi was very responsive to some things in a deep way. And so we trust that seed that has been sown will continue to grow. But I would just encourage people to keep praying for Apollo. She has returned back to the streets and not doing well physically. So just continue to lift her. She's a real burden on our hearts. And we just hope, at some point she'll return.
Yeah. And I've always loved, and we've shared before about Abbas Heart, that even when a kid leaves, right, they may not be able to return to the program proper, right, because that's a difficult part of this, but you guys have never abandoned them, right, and are always open. You're always helping former residents who didn't complete the program and being involved in their lives. And we've seen God work in that. And kids that still took what they learned in the years they were with you, even if they didn't finish, even if they left poorly, but thrive and not return to the ways of the past. I mean, even though they didn't complete the program. So God does not, the story's not over for those kids. It's not over for Naomi or Mapalo. So just continue to pray for them. So as we pray tonight, we want to invite you guys and ask you all to be praying for our staff, for our kids, for everyone, staff in the U.S., staff abroad, our Zambian staff. I mean, that God would just protect us and strengthen us for the battle ahead, but also for wisdom in the transition, for the resources that we're going to need for such a transition that's going to be huge. What else for you guys would you just want people to be praying for?
Probably just unity of the spirit within the staff, and as we move forward in this.
Yeah, I think it's a God-sized task that we have ahead of us, and I know for our team, a lot of it's going to feel intimidating and overwhelming. I'm sure Chris and Amy are going to feel the brunt of that because they're so close to what's going on with the families and the kids in town. There's so many kids coming into town right now, right, Chris? Was it yesterday? Somebody posted they just found a group of 10 kids that were new to town. So there's a lot of things going on socially that are creating this dynamic of kids rushing to the streets. And so that there's a bigger picture to this, that there is a spiritual warfare going on. And when there's spiritual warfare, yes, we do things in our strength, and we work, but we also need to work behind the scenes in the spiritual realm. We need to be praying, and we need to have faith. We need to when one of our workers goes into, could be a home of a witch doctor who has a child in the streets, or somebody who's very influenced with witchcraft and that mindset, and that's very demonic. And so being mindful of those dynamics, and that we're praying for these kids, for these families, that God would move through the power of his Holy Spirit and just reveal himself. And that's what we're asking for, that he would reveal himself, that he would be glorified, that
Amen.
he would bring, that he would be reunifying these families and restoring them. So we just really need to focus on that, because if it's about us, it's not going anywhere.
That's right.
It has
Amen.
to be about God. So.
Amen.
So pray for great stories.
I think I was gonna add another one. I think another thing you can be, people can be praying for is just, I know you mentioned wisdom, but I can't reemphasize how important that is, especially for the outreach team. Yeah, so if you can just pray for, strength, and wisdom, because there are times, like recently we had a conversation with a parent and you walk away from the conversation just, feeling so drained, because you have to decipher, all the information you get, because there's a story that the child is telling, there's a story that the parents are telling, and both of them are saying, no, they're lying, that's not who they are, no, that's not who she is. So at times it can just be, mentally draining to try, to decipher all the information you're getting. And also, I think just strength in the sense of, like, there's parents that we've talked to even recently where, like, we can see the reason why your child is in town is because you did something wrong. So the wisdom to be able to tell them that delicately, I think would really, appreciate that, because you want to work hand in hand. But when you clearly see, who is in the wrong in a culture, that tells kids, like, you're a kid, you don't know anything. Yeah, like, he's going to be.
You can't be right. You're a child, right?
Yeah. So that balance of when to be a lion and when to be a lamb. Yeah, when you have those.
And a little bit of both, right? Like, oh my goodness, wow. Well, as we close tonight, go ahead, Amy.
I was going to say, and as the financial person, and on behalf of that, I mean, I'm, every year we start out and we're like, we want to have faith, but also when I look at the books, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work, if this is going to be the year that we have to, whatever. So, I mean, yeah, we're definitely in a place where we need God to provide financially for us on a monthly basis and in big ways. And so, yeah, I'm just, that's always a prayer, but for sure this year as we embark, because we're kind of in a place where it's going to be hard even to do what we were doing now, let alone adding new staff and all of the different things that we need to do. So yeah, just financial provision for sure is another prayer request always.
Absolutely. As we prepare to close tonight in prayer too, I just want to challenge everybody that's listening to this. I mean, look, invite people to visit the website, heartofthebride.org, right? And see what we're doing. Find our podcast, Plead the Cause, and share it. Share the last couple podcasts that we have. And they're on YouTube. They're on all the podcast platforms. You can share them on Facebook and Instagram. You can share them on all the platforms. Invite people to be a part of what we're doing, right? We believe that the answer for this crisis is you, right? That you can be the answer. That's what Heart of the Bride is called to do. It's equip the body of Christ to do what God has called us to do, right? To visit widows and orphans in their affliction, right? We are called to share the Father's heart for orphaned and vulnerable children around the world. So do that. Join with us. Everyone listening to this is already with us. So invite others to do it. Right. And talk to your churches, get your churches involved with us. We'll be happy to come and share because we believe that this is the Father's heart. And it's not just social ministry. This is the gospel at work. This is Great Commission work. And what we are doing through this program is now engaging families in the compounds, right? Going into homes. I mean, we're taking the gospel right into the world. And so join with us in that. As we go tonight, I'm going to invite Greg. Greg West is the chairman of the board of Heart of the Bride. How you doing tonight, Greg?
I'm good. I'm good now that I'm on, Brian.
Yeah, you're on. Greg has been with us the whole time, just in the background, and then sniping his questions through the private chat. I didn't even see that, Greg.
At least somebody's watching. Yeah, thanks.
Candace caught it. Well, I invited Greg on tonight. He's been chairman of our board now for, I guess, a little over 2 years. But been a part of Heart of the Bride since the very beginning. And so he has watched all of this grow prayerfully and supportively, supported Heart of the Bride, he and his wife, for many, many years. So I just thought it was fitting to have him with us tonight and invite Greg to pray for you guys, pray for us all, as our board does often as we go through this. So let's close tonight by just asking Greg to close us in prayer tonight.
Yeah, thanks. Oh, God in heaven, we praise you. We acknowledge that you alone are good and you're great and you're righteous. And we're just thankful that you love us so that we could love you, and that you made a way for us through Jesus. And we just praise you for that. I thank you for this time tonight. And I thank you for just the things we've learned, and the time to share concerns and share testimonies. And I thank you for that. It's good for us. And Father, I just want to lift up the staff at Abbas Heart, and to just pray for this transition that they're going through in a lot of ways with the Walkers and the Morrises, and now with the program, and with and trying to have clarity on that. And God, I just pray right now through the unity of spirit, you would bring clarity when clarity is needed. And I pray along also just in the one spirit that there would be peace and patience along the way, and a resting in you to provide the way and to provide the answers when it's time. And I pray for that. I pray for peace for them. God, I also just want to pray for the staff at Heart of the Bride as well, and for wisdom and for patience and a resting in you. God, I wanted to just pray against the darkness. I want to pray against spirits that are not of you, that are hurdles or hindrances to the ministry and what you're wanting to accomplish there. And we pray against it in the name of Jesus. God, I just thank you for the testimony of what this ministry has been for so long, and just how we've seen you working in it. And then now the testimony of how you're working even now in this transition where there's still a lot of uncertainty, but you continue to make a way for it. And I'm thankful to hear about the government's involvement and how that's just the testimony of that. I pray for the local churches there, that you would raise them up in a great way to come alongside and to really be a help in ministering to these families. Well, I just pray for just pray that you would be the one that makes a way for them. And I pray that there's through the Spirit, God, I just pray that there's such a peace about that, and a resting in that, that you'd make it clear. I pray for wisdom and these things where there is uncertainty. I pray for wisdom and guidance, again, through the Spirit, that you would make things clear and you give clear answers in these difficult situations. God, right now too, I pray that you would raise up support for this ministry and for the needs that it has. And you're well aware of it. God, I pray right now you begin to raise up the support that's needed to accomplish your work, so that you can be glorified in all of it. We thank you just for the testimony of how you've already provided, how you've already made a great way. And we praise you for that. And we just want to pray all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Greg. Hey, thank you guys for getting up early. So, enjoy, I guess, the nap you're about to take, or
I would take a nap. I'm for a
ready
nap.
to go.
Look, I'm telling you, between 3:30 and 7 a.m., when everybody's asleep, you can get a lot done. I'm just telling you. I've done it before. So yeah. Well, hey, I thank you guys so much. Hope you guys have a great night and a great day ahead of you. I know you're going to be dragging a little bit. So, and thank you to, thank you to everyone who, who joined us tonight and, hung in with us for a long one, but this was so good. Really, really appreciate you all. And just appreciate you being with us on this journey to be the answer for orphaned and vulnerable children around the world. So thank you so much, and God bless you all.